Hi guys, this is Andrew with rockclass101.com, and in this week's ukulele lesson, we're going to be learning a bluesy rhythm and licks piece. Now, this lesson is part of our concept lesson series, which teaches you how to jam with others. Now, I know what you're thinking. This was a solo ukulele piece, so how does it relate to jamming with other people? Well, take a look at this photo. We can see a very famous band. It's Cream. Now, you got to think about what Eric Clapton's role in that band was. There is no second guitarist to lay down the chord work to create more harmony, and there was no keyboardist that could do the same. So his role was to do both parts, to lay down the rhythm, but also to play the lead. And I think a lot of times when we approach playing with others in a band scenario, we approach it with a single track mind to play either rhythm or to play lead, but sometimes we may not cross-pollinate the two to do both at the same time. And so that was the idea behind this lesson, was how can we create a beautiful harmony, no pun intended, between the two. So this week's lesson should be a lot of fun, and let's go ahead and kick into talking a little bit about it. So what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to split this lesson into two parts. In this video, which is the part 1 lesson, we'll learn the first half of this tune, and then in the part 2 lesson, we'll learn the second half. So if you want to watch the second half, you can click this link right here, or you can go to this site, rockclass101.com, and do a search for EP015. That's the lesson number for this lesson. Now, also on that page will be the tabs that you can print off to follow along with, as well as the on-screen interactive tab player. So this is a really cool feature where you can hit play, you can watch the tabs scroll across in real time, you can highlight bars to loop sections, slow it down to any speed you wish. Just a great asset in learning this song that much easier. All right, so let's cover a couple things that we need to talk about real quick before actually jumping into learning this. So the first thing I want to talk about is our right hand approach for picking. So this song has a lot of quick licks that are at a brisk paced tempo. So to maximize and make our right hand as efficient as possible, we're going to use piccato picking, which is a fancy terminology that just means alternate picking. So to demonstrate this on the A string, you're going to pick with the middle finger and then follow it up with the index finger. So it's just alternating, middle, index, middle, index, middle, index. And that's going to help you build speed when you're playing those quick little bluesy licks, especially when you get to that part 2. When you get to that part. So we just want to maximize and increase our efficiency with our right hand. Now, if you're new to that technique, I went way more in depth in this lesson. I'll put the spelling up here somewhere. It's called La Gitanita. It's a flamenco tune, and it's super fun to play. So if you dig that style, check it out. Now, the next thing I want to talk about is the big elephant in the room, which is this. This tune is for low G, so you got to grab the low G for this arrangement. The next thing is just some of the basics. This is a blues piece, so we want to make sure we understand the 12-bar blues form before we jump into learning this song. So if you need a recap on the structure of the 12-bar blues, check out this link right here. I'll put it in the description box below. Now, here's the thing. This key that we're playing out of, it's going to be in the key of D. So that means that our 1 chord is D7, our 4 chord is G7, and our 5 chord is A7. But just because you're learning this song in the key of D doesn't mean that you can't take all of what you're learning and move it to a different key. And it's actually easier than you think it is. So, for example, if I play just one little lick out of the 1 chord, out of D, sounds like that. But what if you were playing with a group of friends and you were playing out of the key of C? So all you have to do is take everything that you just played, all the shapes and all the chords, and just drop it down a whole step. So D becomes C. And the same thing applies. If you were playing out of E, just take everything and move it up a whole step. Pretty cool, right? So you can take everything you learn in this lesson and switch it to different keys to fit whatever you're playing out of. Now, the last thing about blues I want to talk about is that blues has that swung eighth note feel, so you want to have that rhythm that has the swung feel instead of straight. So if you're new to understanding the difference between straight versus swung rhythm, check out this lesson. And again, I'll put it in the description box below. But needless to say, this is a more advanced piece, so we're going to be moving at a quicker pace. So if you're new to the blues, I'll put a couple links in the description box below for beginner and intermediate level pieces. So if you want something a little bit more approachable, that'll be in the description box below. Okay, so this song is going to start out with kind of like a little bit of I'm going to call it an intro. We're kicking off at the tail end of the 8th bar in the 12-bar blues format. So we're playing the tail end of 8, going into bar 9 to 10 to 11 to 12 until we kick into the 12-bar blues, which is going to be cut short by 2 bars, but we'll talk about that when we get there. So keep that in mind. So here's the first 4 bars for this little intro. Sounds like this. 1, 2, 3. Okay, so that gives us a good gist of what our intro sounds like. So again, we want to remember that we're starting out at the tail end of the 8th measure. And a way for you to count yourself in for this is to give yourself an extra bar. So you have 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, and 4, and... Okay, so that's just that makes it not so jumping into the piece, right? So always want to count yourself in for these pickup measures and give yourself enough time. So 2 bars is a good amount of time. So with this first little pickup bar, you can see the tab up top. We're just playing 3 notes. We're starting on the end of 3, and 4, and. So it's going to start with the index on the 5th fret of string 2. Ring finger is going to go on the 7th fret of string 2, but you can see there's a little bend, and it's a micro bend. It's a quarter step bend. So to do this, take that ring finger, put it on 7, but look at my other fingers. You see the middle finger's on the 6th fret, and the index stays on the 5th fret. So that's just going to give you a little bit more strength when you tug the note up. Okay, so let's talk about this tug. So anytime we're doing a bend, we want to keep finger pressure applied. So you want to keep the finger pressure held down on that 7th note. And then you're just going to push straight up ever so slightly. So you can hear the pitch just goes ever so slightly sharp, right? It's not a crazy full step bend, half step bend, or anything. It's just adding a little bit of color to that note instead of sounding so flat. Right, so you can hear da da da, right? It's just a little bit of color to that note. And that's the trick with this little first part. Okay, now the last note is going to be the 5th fret of string 1. So you have 5, 7 with a tug, and then 5 on string 1. So remember, you start on the end of 3. So let's try together. 1, 2, 3, and 4, and... Awesome. Now, as we go into measure 1, take a look at the rhythm. You start out with 8th note triplets. So if you're new to understanding what that is, I'll put a link in the description box below that breaks it down and explains it in a nutshell. So check that out if you need it. But in essence, we have 8th note triplets for the first half of the measure. So you want to think of this rhythm just by counting first. Triplet, triplet, 3, and 4, and if you tie the first part, the little pickup measure, we have 1, 2, 3, and 4, and triplet, triplet, 3, and 4, and, right? So you can always approach learning this piece by just looking at the rhythms first and kind of singing it. If you can sing it, you can play it. This is a very get these licks stuck in your head. It's a very catchy thing. Right? It's very catchy. If you can sing it, you can play it. 1, 2, 3. Very catchy. Okay? So here's the thing. The last note that we left off was 5. If you look at the first couple notes for this first measure, you can see that we're literally just walking chromatically 6, 7. Okay, so keep that in mind, just a chromatic walk up. Okay, So you left off with the index on 5 on string 1. You're going to go 6 to sev. The next one, you have a little grace note. So you're going to go sev to 8 on string 2 with the ring. Okay, so boom, very quick. It's got to fit into that 8th note triplet rhythm. After that, you're going to move the ring finger back to the 7th fret, and you're going to do a pull off. Okay, it pulls off to the 5th fret with the index. Then we're going to add the middle finger to 6 on string 3, and then back to 5 on string 2. So that takes us up to beat 3. So that's kind of the phrase that I want you to practice. So if you add the little pickup measure, 5, sev, 5, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 3. When I said 3, that's beat 3 that we end on. But again, think of it as, can I play by ear for this first part? 1, 2, 3. Da, do, da, 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 da. Without me singing, 1, 2, 3. Okay, so get that stuck in your head. Da 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 ba da 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 da. That's what you want to get. 5, sev, 5, 6, 5, slide, sev, 5, 6, 5. You can even call out the frets that you're playing out of. 5, sev, 5, 6, sev, slide, sev, 5, 6, 5. Right? Call it out to the rhythm that you're playing. 1, 2, 3. Okay, so let's try together slow. 1, 2, 3. Awesome. Now, as we do the last part for this measure, ba-da-da, we're just walking down chromatically. So we walked up chromatically, now we're walking down chromatically. Okay? So to do this, you're going to take the index, put it on 6 on string 4, middle 7 on string 3. You're going to pluck that, go down a half step to 5, 6, and down another half step to 4, 5. Da da da. And we have 8th notes, but remember, keep that swung rhythm intact. So I want you to add that. So it sounds like this. 1, 2, 3. Okay, so let's see if you and I can try. 1, 2, 3. Nice. Now as we go into our second measure, take note of the first hit. There is no first hit. So you start on the end of 1. Ba-da-da, ba-da-da-dum. So it sounds like this. Okay, if I count it, 3, 4, 1, and 2, and 3, and 4, and 1. Okay, and I'm ending on the first note of the next measure. So this one's very simple. So we start on the 7th fret of the 2nd string, and then we're going to the 5th fret of the A string, and we're going to hit that twice. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, and 2, and... Okay? Now to finish it up, you're holding into the 3rd beat, so your next hit is on the end of 3. So you're seeing a lot of this syncopation, right? We're hitting off the beat. We're starting our phrases off the beat, and that's something that happens a lot in blues, and it gives it that kind of a classic sound. So for this last part, you're going to start with the 7th fret on string 4 with the ring finger. Then we're going to play 5 to 6 on the 3rd string, and then end back on 7. So that'll be the next measure, but we'll look at that tab in a minute. So just remember, we end on 7. Boo-da-da-doom. Okay, so putting that measure together, very simple. 1, 2, 3, 4, rest. Nice. So far, another thing I want to point out too, guys, is that you can see we're really playing out of what I like to call the box. A lot of people refer to it as a position. We're playing from 5 to the 8th fret. We haven't had anything on the 8th fret, I do not believe. But take note of how I played that. Each finger got its own fret. 5, 6, 7, 1st, 2nd, 3rd. So as I play through all of this, other than the chromatic walk down, you can see that each finger is assigned its own fret. That's going to make your left hand playing really efficient. So keep that in mind as you work through this piece, because a lot of it is played out of that position. Okay, so let's do this now. Let's take a look at the pickup going into the first and the second measure. Let's see if we can try that together. I'll demo it first. Sounds like this. 1, 2, 3. Okay, so let's see if you and I can try. 1, 2, 3. Nice. So kicking off for the last part of the third measure, sounds like this. Okay, and you can see it's a little bit abrupt, so let's add the last note, which is the first hit for measure 4. So we are basically playing straight out of the box I just talked about. Starts on 7 on string 4, then you go to 5, 6 on string 3, 5, 7 on string 2, and then end on 5 on string 1, and that'll be our next measure. But you're starting on beat 2, 2 and 3 and 4, and here's the catch. You don't play anything on the end of 4, you're playing the 5 on beat 1. So let me count this in for you guys. 3, 4, 1, 2 and 3 and 4, 1. Okay? So you can kind of put a little bit of a rest or make beat 4 a little bit of a staccato-y sound if you want to just give it a little bit more. So let's see if we can try that. We'll start on beat 2 for this measure. 3, 4, 1. Nice. If we look at the fourth measure, you can see that's where we left off. That's where we start off, I suppose I should say. So you're playing that note. We come down with a slap for beat 2, and we're going to make the first chord hit here, which is the D7. So bar across all 4 strings, the 5th fret, add the middle finger to 6 on string 3. You're going to pluck that, and you can see that you're going to rest on beat 3. So here's the thing. Before we learn the last half of this measure, let's just backtrack and let's go, right? Because that sounds like a complete phrase. So let's see if we can try that, starting on beat 2. 3, 4, 1. Nice. So let's see if we can try this now. Let's see if we can start from the pickup and go all the way to where we just left off. So here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3. Nice. So the next part you can kind of think of as our little pickup. Right, sounds like that. It starts in the same place as the actual pickup measure for this tune, but meaning that it starts on the end of 3. But you can see that we have a triplet, 8th note triplet for the last hit. Da 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 da. So a bit of speed and and triplet. Sounds like that. And triplet. So you start on 5 on string 3, go to 6 on string 3, then 5, 7 on 2, and triplet. Okay, so let's see if we can try just that. So we start on the end of 3, so we have 1, 2, 3, and triplet. Nice. So that you can think of as what leads us into the second section. Okay, and our second section is going to be this, what I'm calling 10-bar blues, because what we're going to be doing is we're going to play the 12-bar blues to a T with one minor exception, which we'll talk about in a sec. But we're going to play the 12-bar blues up to the end of the 10th bar. And then instead of going to bar 11, we're going to do something different for this tune. And we'll talk about that when we get there. So keep that in mind. So here's what the first part sounds like, and I'm going to start from that little pickup that we just played. But I'll play the first couple bars because that's a good phrase of this. So it sounds like this. 1, 2, 3. Okay, so I lied. I played the first few bars, right? But you can hear it's just so catchy. Da 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 ba ba da 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 ba ba. Right? So if you can memorize it, you can get that stuck in your head. It's going to make it so much easier to play. So the second time I said that, I'm like a broken record, but it's true. Okay, so to break this one down, remember where we left off. And triple it. So we're going to start this measure off with 2 hits on the 5th fret of the A string. And then here, what we're going to do is we're going to do kind of like a little bit of a chunk, where instead of coming down like a slap like we talked about in the previous measure, we're instead going to come down as if it's like a regular chunk. So you're going to add that percussive attack to your muted strum. But you can see the following note, we're just going to do an up strum, and with the nail of the thumb, you can hit that A string. And the whole time here, watch this left hand, I'm just muting the strings just as if it was a normal kind of muted strum per se. So you can see, watch that left hand. Okay, so, and triple it 1, and strum with the chunk, come up and hit just the A string muted. Okay, so, and triple it 1 and 2, and. Okay, at this point, go back to the D7, and you can pluck that one if you want, so it sounds like this. Okay, or you can do what I just did there, which is to do a down strum. So it's kind of, you want to experiment a little bit and see what works with your playing style. And triple it 1 and 2 and 3. Right, so try both. Try a strum or a pluck for that last hit. But let's see if we can try that from the pickup. 1, 2, 3, and triple it 1 and 2 and 3. Okay, now you can also notice I put a little dot above that chord. That's the staccato hit. So just cut it short. Anytime you do staccato, you just lift up, but don't lift all the way up, but keep pressure held down so it becomes like a mute. So you want to touch the strings so it cuts the notes short. Okay, so I have and triple it 1 and 2 and 3. Okay, at this point, you can come down with a slap, and I want you to pluck our next chord. Okay, so it's a G9. So to make this chord, what we're going to do is we're going to take the ring, lay it flat on the 5th fret, strings 1, 2, and 3. Take the index, put it on 4 on string 4. Okay, so we have a G9 for this last hit of the measure. So a little bit of a tricky, because you've got to be flat at that first joint and bent up at that second, or this knuckle right here. So if you're new to playing bar chords, form is really important. Form isn't just what's happening in front of the neck, but also what's happening behind the neck. So if you need a recap on proper left-hand form, I'll put a link in the description box below to our lesson that covers just that. So if I add this entire measure plus the pickup together, I have 1, 2, 3, and triple it 1 and 2 and 3, 4, and. Let's see if we can try together. 3, 4, 1, 2, 3. Nice. Now going into the next measure, you can see that again, we're not starting on beat 1. We have a rest, an 8th note rest, and then it sounds like this. So we have a cool little lick. Ba-da-da-da-da-da-da. So you want to, again, get that stuck in your head. Okay, so it's a little tricky. Here's what happens. You have a very tiny note. If you can see it, it's going to be slide 7 to 8. It's a grace note. So it just adds a little bit of flair to this opening phrase. Right? But it's going to be quick. It's 7, slides to 8, slides back to 7. As you can hear, it's got to be ba-da, da-da, right? It's very fast. At this point, you're going to pull off to the 5th fret with the index. Okay, so listen to that and match that timing and get that fill down. Ba-da-da, ba-da-da. To finish it up, it's very simple. 3 and 4 and... So you can see 7 to 5 is a pull off, 7 to 5 pluck. So A to the E string. Da 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 da. That's what you want to memorize. But key thing, again, starting on the end of 1. 3, 4, 1. Okay, let's you and I try. 3, 4, 1. Nice. So if we backtrack, let's add that into the little pickup. 1, 2, 3. Cool. Now, going into our next measure is actually really easy. Sounds like this. It's identical to the 5th measure, or the first measure that we did for this section. The only difference is instead of going to the G9 at the end of it, we stay on the A chord. So there's the tiny change that I had alluded to before we started this section. We're playing the 12-bar blues 2T, except in the second measure, we're switching it to the 4 chord, and that's just a common variation. That's a common thing that you can do for the 12-bar blues. The 12-bar blues does not have to be played to a T as the standard 12-bar blues. You can kind of alter things, and you can get really, really jazzy and crazy with it. This lesson did that. This lesson, I'll link right here, it did 3 times through the blues form for beginner, intermediate, and advanced, but if you listen to the advanced one, it did some really cool changes on the 12-bar blues form. So before you get all jazzy and crazy with it, you want to start with simple changes, and a simple change is to sub this 2-bar out for the 4 chord instead of continuing with the 1 chord. So that's a really easy change you can do. Now the rest of the measures, as we go 3 all the way to the end of 10, they're going to follow the standard 12-bar blues form. So with this third measure for the 12-bar blues that we're playing out of, which is bar 7 on the tab, you already know exactly how to play it. So it's 5, 5, then we come down with the chunk, up with the muted hit on the A string, then we can strum down on the D7 chord, and then down with a slap and a pluck. And when you pluck the 1 chord. So that's the only change. So let's see if we can try it together. 3, 4, 1 and 2 and 3, 4, and. Nice. Now as we go into the next measure, we have a really cool pentatonic lick. Sounds like this. So again, one that you can sing, ba-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. And you can notice it is all out of the 8th note triplet rhythm. And the second thing you notice, again, we're seeing starting on the end of 1. And triplet, 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 1. Okay, so let's learn this lick. So it's playing out of that box that we talked about, so keep the fingering in mind. So we're going to start with the 7th fret of the 4th string. Then we start with all the 8th note triplet rhythms. So we have on string 3, 5, 7, string 2, 5. So let's take just up to there. So we have 3, 4, 1, and triplet. Nice. Now the next set of triplets, you're going to start on 7 on string 3, pull off to 5, go to 7 on string 4, and then keep the index where it was, play 5 on string 3, 7 on string 4, 5 on string 3. And I want you to add the last note, which is going to be going down a half step. It's going to be the 4th fret of string 4. So the second half we had, okay, so you're starting on beat 3, triplet, triplet, and then ending on 4 on string 4. So let's try that. Start on beat 3. 3, 4, 1, 2. Triplet, triplet, 4 on string 4. And if we put the entire bar together, remember starting the end of 1. 3, 4, 1. Okay, now here's the thing. As we go into our next measure, keep the index finger where it's at. Bar with the ring finger. We're back to G9, right? And we got that same little measure with a couple little variations that we did. So it's that same kind of little measure, but we're just playing out of a different chord, and we have just a couple changes. So let's talk about what those changes are. So we know that we left off playing that 4 on string 4. You're going to play the 5 on string 1. Remember, we barred to make the G9. So we have one end. So you can come down with that same little percussive chunk hit. But remember, you got to lift pressure up so it mutes the strings. So you come down with the chunk, come up with the muted hit with the thumb on the A string. So it sounds like that. 1 and 2 and. Let's try it together. 3, 4, 1 and 2 and. Good. Push down for the chord, strum down, 3. Okay, and you can cut it short, see a little staccato hit. At that point, come down with a slap and then pluck the chord. Okay, so together, sounds like that. Let's you and I try. 3, 4. Very good. So before we go to the next part, let's just try those two measures together. So here we go. Remember, starting the end of 1 for that pentatonic lick. 3, 4, 1. Nice. So if I recap, though, everything we have so far, just to give us a frame of context, we have 1, 2, 3. Cool. So that's the gist of where we're at. So this next phrase I love. It sounds like this. So it's very melodic. Da, 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 da. Let me clean it up. Right, so very catchy. See if you can sing that one. La da 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 da. Just beautiful little phrasing. Okay, so let's learn what's happening. It's very simple. We're finally breaking out of the box. So that's the first thing you notice. We're not playing that 5, 6, and 7 little box. Instead, we're playing up here. And we're going to voice ourselves out of the higher D chords, which we'll talk about in the next measure. But first off, we have the 10th fret with the ring. We're going to play that twice. So we have 10, 10, then to 9, back to 10, pinky goes to 12, and then we have the little grace note slide, 8 to 9 with the middle finger, and I want you to end with the ring on 10. So key thing again, you see we start on the end of 1, and 2, and 3, and 4, and sounds like that. Let's you and I try. 3, 4, 1. Okay, take note of these two fingers. They are staying anchored. So ring ended where we left off, which is 10 on 2. Middle stayed on 9 on string 1. If you add your index to 9 on string 3, you get this first D chord, and this D chord you notice is the same as the G. Well, when you move it all the way up the neck, A, B, C, D, we get a higher voicing of D. Now, if that blew your mind, check out the caged method, C-A-G-E-D. It's a very popular method for guitar players to learn how to move common chord shapes up the neck so they become other chords, but it can also be applied to the ukulele with one little minor change in caged. So I'll put that lesson in the description box below. But it's a great concept to learn because it breaks you out of playing at the beginning of the neck. And if you're jamming with somebody and they're playing a D chord in stock position, you can create a harmony by playing the D chord up higher instead of copying them and everyone strumming the same cowboy chord down at the beginning of the neck. Okay, so now we know this shape we all know. If we switch it up, again, think of the G chord. If you make that G7 and we move that up the neck, that's going, there we go. I went one too high. That's where we're going to end this measure on. So 9, 8, 9. So you want to just practice those two chord changes. So just that stock G shape to the stock G7 shape. So 9, 10, 9 to 9, 8, 9. Okay? But when we put it into the context, you can see that this measure is pretty much the same as the ones that we have seen a few times now, with one key difference. Look at the first note. You can see that we're holding it, so it's a tie. So we're actually playing our first hit on the end of one. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to play from the previous measure into this measure to give you a context of what it sounds like. Okay, so I have 3, 4, 1, and 2, and 3, and 4, and 1, and 2, and 3, 4, and. Okay, so let's break down what's happening. So we know that we had left off with, right, going into that shape for this D chord. We're going to hold that last note into beat 1. On the end of 1, you're going to play the A string, then come down with the percussive little chunk. So make sure you mute the strings. Come up with the thumb to hit the A string, push down, strum the chord, then slap and switch to the dominant and pluck. So that's all that's happening. Da 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 da, and 2, and 3, 4, and. Now, that time around, you saw me use a different fingering, right? And 2, and 3, and 4, and 1, and 2, and. Okay? So if you don't like this, if you don't like that fingering, you can always go and 2, and 3, and slide, 4, and slap, and partial bar to the regular dominant. So you can try that fingering as well, and I think that's what I used for the performance. So here's the point too. Don't feel like you have to copy everything identical to what I do. Feel free to switch it up a little bit, but just keep in mind that the fingering choices I give you are things that I've thought out thoroughly to be very efficient. But just because it's efficient for me doesn't mean that it'll be efficient for your playing style 100% of the time. You know, it's like kind of like a 9 out of 10 rule. You know, it works 9 times out of 10 kind of thing. So these two measures, they're pretty simple. Let's try them together, and you can use either fingering. So here we go. 3, 4, 1. All right, so to finish it up, our next phrase sounds like this. So again, a very catchy little melodic run. Da 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 da, and triple it 3 and 4 and. So that's our rhythm. So you're gonna start with the middle finger on 9 on string 3, and then go to the 8th fret of string 2. This starts our triplet, 8 to 9, and then move to 7 with the index on string 1. So you have and triplet. At this point, take the ring, 9 to 10, then go back to 9, then to 7, and then back to 9. Okay? And triplet 3 and 4 and. Now I would probably end with the ring finger because in the next measure, we're going to be playing out of this A7 shape. So switching the ring finger up a string is going to be very efficient. But let's try this measure together. It's very simple. 3, 4, 1. And triplet 3 and 4 and. One time without me counting. 3, 4, 1. Nice. Now the next measure sounds like this. So you can see we have pretty much a continuation of the other stuff with some little variations, right? Now that second time I played it a little bit different. So I put a strum instead of a slap. And that, again, that's kind of continuing what I talked about. You don't have to do everything 100% as I'm showing you. You can switch it up to fit your playing style. But you can come down with maybe a slap for this first one. And then you're going to pluck just the bottom part of this chord. So let's talk about this chord shape. Lay the index flat on 7, strings 1, 2, and 3, and add the ring to 9 on string 2. So we're going to ignore string 4. So this gives us a different A7 shape. Okay, so we're going to come down with a slap, pluck strings 1 and 2, then mute the strings with the left hand, come down with a strum, come up with the thumb to hit the A string, then you can pluck or strum the chord. Okay, so we have, okay, so very similar to before. 1 and 2 and 3. Okay, to end it, slap, pluck. So you're staying on this A7 the whole time. Slap, pluck, down, up, strum, slap, pluck. So it's hard to say all that in the timing, but I think you get the idea. Okay, let's try together. 3, 4. Nice. And if we backtrack that first little measure going into this one, 3, 4, 1. Very cool sounding stuff, right? So that takes us into our 10th measure for this this section, and on the tab it's measure 14. And this one you already know. Okay, so that one is the exact same lick that we did for the second measure, which is 6 in this section. And then this last note starts off our next measure. Okay, so we don't need to cover that since we know how to play it already, but let's do this. Let's cycle through. I'm just going to play through those 10 bars starting at that pickup, and that'll give you the context of this big section that we have right here. And then we're going to talk about what happens instead of playing measure 11 and 12 for the 12 bars. We're inserting a different turnaround. So here's what everything sounds like all the way through. Okay, so that gives us kind of a good gist of what everything sounds like for this entire section. So remember, this is the second section. So we have that intro, then we have this 10-bar blues section. Now, at this point, what happens is that we're going to insert a 4-bar turnaround. Now, most of the time when people talk about a turnaround, they're talking about the 2 bars at the end of the tune. But sometimes I like to think of it and a bigger section, this 4-bar chunk, because in the context of this tune, this 4-bar chunk is really acting as the 2-bar. It's just elongated, so to speak. So here's what the last 4 bars sound like, and this is what we've got. Right, so you can hear it's kind of like this traditional 2-bar turnaround, but just longer. So it's very, very simple. It follows the same kind of repetitive rhythmic measures that we've seen before. So you're starting with 2 hits on 5 on string A, and we're coming down with the little chunk hit, up with the thumb, strum down with the D7, then come down with the slap and change to the G9. So that measure in and of itself was identical to the first measure 5 for this section, for the previous section. So you have 1 and 2 and 3, 4, and now here's the catch. Look at the next measure. The G9 holds into the first hit, so you're not going to do your first actual pluck until the end of 1. So you're going to pluck the 5th fret of string 1, come down with the chunk strum, up with the thumb, push down, strum the chord, come down with the slap, and then switch it back to D7. So you have and 2 and 3, 4, and. Okay? Now I think this is much more easier to grasp if we try those 2 measures together. So let's try that. 3, 4. Okay, look at the third one. You can see again, holding into that first beat. You're going to come and hit the 5th fret, string A, down again, and then up, and then push the chord, strum, then we slap, and here's a change. We're going to go to a passing chord tone. So we're going to go a half step higher than we want to be for the 1, 4, 5 chord, right? So for the 5 chord, we're a half step up, so we're at an A sharp 9. So you're taking that G9 chord shape, just move it up to 7 and flat on 8. So you're gonna grab that for the last hit. Okay, so here's what the context sounds like, just that third measure by itself. Okay, and again, just playing one of these measures at a time sounds very abrupt. So you know the rhythm, so let's do this. Let's start from the first one and play through the third. Okay, here we go. 1, 2, ready, go. So we're holding this on to that first beat. We're going to play the A string, then we're going to come down with the slap and move the chord shape down a half step. And we're plucking this A9. So 6 flat on 7. So that takes us back to the 4 chord. Now we hold into beat 3, hit this first string, and then come down with one more slap. So in the context of this measure, you have 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. Okay? But again, this all makes more sense in the context of the entire 4-bar turnaround. So let's try the 4 bars together. 3, 4. So this was a really cool way to transition into the craziness that we kick off the second part of the lesson with, which is that crazy arpeggios that we're picking out of, but of course at a very quick tempo. So that's where we're going to end this lesson, guys. So we learned the intro, which is the first 4 bars. Again, that started at the tail end of the 8th bar for the 12-bar blues form. Then we went into the second section, which was literally 10 bars of the 12-bar blues form with the second bar subbed out for the 4 chord. And then we went into this little turnaround, so an elongated turnaround. Instead of 2 bars, the last 2 bars of the blues form, we extended it to 4 bars. And that leads us into the crazy little arpeggio. And that's where we're going to be kicking off the part 2 lesson. So if you want to check out and watch the part 2 lesson, you can click this link right here, or you can go to the site, rockclass101.com. Do a search for EP015. That's the lesson number for this lesson. Don't forget to, on the page is the tabs that you can print off, you can keep for your records, and access the really cool interactive on-screen tab player. So it's literally lets you hit play. You can watch the tab scroll across in real time. You can highlight bars, loop sections, slow it down, all that fun jazz. So guys, I hope you enjoyed this lesson, and I'll see you in the part 2 one. Take care.